All right, so should you upgrade from this 4-year-old iPhone 13 Pro Max to the new iPhone 17 Pro Max solely based off of the camera improvements and more importantly, camera quality? So I'm gonna go through all that at the end of the video. I'll give you my detailed thoughts on why I think you may or may not wanna upgrade based off of camera improvements, as well as overall general improvements between these two phones. But in short, all 4 camera sensors have been replaced and improved on the 17 Pro Max. They've been slowly replacing each of the sensors year after year. And finally, between the 13 Pro Max and the 17 Pro Max, all 4 sensors are all new. So on the rear, you're getting triple 48 megapixel sensors on the 17 Pro Max, up from the 12 megapixels on the 13 Pro Max, and they're all larger sensors as well, which is important. And on the front-facing selfie camera, you're going from 12 megapixels on the 13 Pro Max to 18 megapixels on the 17 Pro Max. And the 17 Pro Max, as well as all the iPhone 17 models, have this open gate camera concept for the selfie camera, meaning it can switch from portrait to landscape automatically. And it also has a slightly wider field of view at 20 millimeters compared to the 23 millimeters that you're seeing here on the 13 Pro Max. So again, this is the front-facing footage from both these cameras. And so you can see you can fit a bit more in the frame on the 17 Pro Max. So if you like things like group selfies, that could be important. But as you can see here, it's not by a ton. So here's some cinematic video from these front-facing cameras. So you should be seeing this artificial background blur right now. And like I always do, I'm going to show you a bunch of photos and videos in both good and low light conditions, so you can decide for yourself which of these 2 camera systems are going to be best for your smartphone camera needs. And at the end of the video, I'll answer that question, whether I think you should upgrade from the 13 Pro Max to the 17 Pro Max based off of all the photos and videos that you're seeing and what I think about the general quality, as well as all the other improvements that these phones have to offer. So stick around to the end. But first, take a look at all the photos and videos and let me know what you think. So here's a video test of the rear cameras of the iPhone 13 Pro Max up against the 17 Pro Max. As you can see, they both are actively recording from the rear facing cameras. And like I usually do, I'm starting out with the ultra wide angle cameras on each. And this is at 4K 30 frames per second because the 13 Pro Max has a limitation where at 60 frames per second, it cannot shift between the lenses. So at 4K 30, I can. So we'll record this in 4K 30. I can show you all the different cameras. And then I'll probably do a 4K 60 snippet for you. But again, 4K 30 frames per second because the 13 Pro Max cannot change between the lenses while recording. At 60 frames, the 17 Pro Max can. Again, this is the ultra wide angle camera on each. So lots of colors here. Clear skies, totally blue. Got greens in the park, the red shed, and we'll go to the main camera on the 13 Pro Max and now on the 17 Pro Max. So you can see there, side-by-side view here now of the main cameras. Now I'll just pan around to give you a side-by-side view. You can see how the exposure handles the shadows in the trees get lifted a little bit and the shadows on the ground, and when I pan back up you'll see maybe an exposure shift. Not so much there, that's pretty good. We'll go over here to the right and we'll test the zoom out on that cell tower so we can go into the 3x telephoto lens on the 13 Pro Max, 4x telephoto lens on the 17 Pro Max, and the 13 Pro Max can go up to a max 9x zoom here. We can go to an 8x zoom, which is a double crop on the telephoto sensor there on the 17 Pro Max. And this can go all the way up to a 24x zoom on the 17 Pro Max. So much longer focal length, much longer reach on the 17 Pro Max. So if zoom matters to you, both photos and videos, that could be a reason for you to upgrade to the 17 Pro Max. But we'll go back to the main camera, or 1x on the main camera on each. And we'll do autofocus on the post, starting with the 13 Pro Max first. It's just easier to do one at a time. And focuses up nice and quick as you would expect. Nice natural background blur bokeh. 17 Pro Max, same thing. Focuses up really quickly. And away, same thing, nice natural bokeh or background blur there. And let's go ahead and walk down the stairs so we can test the stabilization. And you can see what that looks like side by side here as I go down the stairs and through the pathway. And just to stress out the stabilization, I'll try to run for a bit or jog. So there you go, quick 4K 30 frames per second video test on the 13 Pro Max and the new 17 Pro Max. Hey everyone, so we're back with the rear cameras, this time at 4K 60 frames per second. This is the main camera on each, and like I was saying before, the 13 Pro Max has a limitation. It cannot switch between the lenses while recording at 60 frames per second. So I'm just back with the main camera to show you a 4K 60 frames per second clip, just so you have a comparison here. And so on the 13 Pro Max, I'm on the main lens, so all I can do is a 3x zoom here. Go all the way up to the reach of where the telephoto would take over, and that's it. And of course on the 17 Pro Max, I can go into my telephoto, and I can still go all the way into the max 24x zoom, even at 60 frames here. So I'll just back both of them out to 1x. And I'll just do stabilization, so we get more movement. 60 frames per second, it's all about movement, so you can see more movement here as I walk around and as I jog a little bit. So let me know what you think about this 4K 60 frames per second clip compared to the 30 frames per second clip you just saw. Hey, so we're back with the rear cameras, this time with cinematic mode on both phones. So you should be seeing this artificial background blur right now. And they're both set at f/4.0, so you can make this as little or as more blurry as you want. And on the 13 Pro Max, this is limited to 1080p or full HD at 30 frames per second, while the 17 Pro Max can do this mode in 4K 30 frames per second. And so I'm outdoors, obviously, with the sun shining more directly on me. So this background effect has the optimal chance to look as good as it can because it does require a good amount of light. But I'll go ahead and start panning around so you can see what this looks like as the lighting conditions shift. So now with it more off my left and more behind me, what that does to the background effect and the overall picture quality. And now with the sun shining more directly into the cameras, how that looks and how the effect holds up there. And I'll just pan all the way back around so you can see what this looks like with the fully changing lighting conditions 360. and I'll just walk so you can test the stabilization as well as see how this background effect holds up with some movement. So let me just think about cinematic mode here on the 13 Pro Max and the 17 Pro Max rear camera. So here's a front-facing camera test of the iPhone 13 Pro Max and the 17 Pro Max. This is being recorded at 4K 60 frames per second, and obviously I'm outdoors. A little bit of mixed lighting, there's some shade, but mostly the sun coming down directly onto me. So this is probably as best as the picture is going to look, with the sun shining more directly on me. Exposure is pretty even, but as I pan around this way, you can kind of see what it looks like with the changing lighting conditions, with it a little bit more behind me, and now directly more into the camera. As it tries to come through the trees there, it's going to change the exposure and the quality of the picture there. And I'll bring it back up and just keep panning all the way back around. And I'll just start walking so I can show you the stabilization and how that looks side by side. So let me know what you think about this 4K 60 footage from the front-facing cameras of the 13 Pro Max and the 17 Pro Max. Alright, so we're back with the front-facing cameras. This time it's cinematic mode, so you should be seeing this artificial background blur. And on the 13 Pro Max, this is limited to 1080p, so full HD at 30 frames per second, while the 17 Pro Max can do this effect at 4K 30 frames per second. And also this is being set at an aperture of f/4.0, so this is fully adjustable to as much or less blur as you want. And again, the sun is shining directly on me, so this effect is having the optimal chance to perform as well as it can, because it does require a good amount of light. But as I move around and pan, you can see what it does with the sun more directly off my left and behind me, and now with it more directly into the camera. You can see how it does and how the effect holds up, and the picture quality shifts with that changing light. And I'll keep panning all the way around so you can see what it looks like here as the lighting continues to shift. And as we end up back where we were, I'll just walk so I can show you the stabilization and how this effect holds up with some movement. So let me know what you think about cinematic mode here on the 13 Pro Max versus the selfie camera on the 17 Pro Max. Alright, so here's a low light video test of the rear cameras of the iPhone 13 Pro Max and 17 Pro Max. This is the ultra wide angle cameras to start out on each at 4K 30 frames per second. That's because, like I said earlier in the video, the 13 Pro Max cannot switch between lenses while recording at 60 frames per second. The iPhone 17 Pro Max can. And so the 17 Pro Max has the slightly larger ultra wide angle camera, so you're going to see that it has a bit brighter picture, lets in more light than the 13 Pro Max. But let's go ahead and switch out to the main lens right now on the 13 Pro Max and the 17 Pro Max. So now this is the main cameras, and you're going from a 12 megapixel to 48 megapixel fusion main camera between the 13 and 17 Pro Max. So I'm just going to pan around so you get a side-by-side view of how these main cameras compare in this particular setting. And these are going to be a lot closer as far as lighting and everything else than the ultra wide angle cameras were. The 17 Pro Max has a slightly larger main sensor, but not by much. And let's go ahead and move in and test the telephoto lenses now, because that is also a difference. So we have a 3x telephoto here on the 17 Pro Max and a 4x telephoto. I'm 3x on the 13 Pro Max and a 4x telephoto on the 17 Pro Max. Again, slightly larger sensor on the 17 Pro Max telephoto, as well as a longer reach or focal length. But we can go all the way to a 9x zoom on the 13 Pro Max. And you can see the clarity, or not so much clarity there. An 8x zoom, which is a 2x crop on the telephoto sensor on the 17 Pro Max, which can go all the way up into a 24x zoom with some decent clarity considering low light there. At least it's better than the 9x clarity on a 13 Pro Max. And we'll back out the 17 Pro Max and the 13 Pro Max to 1x, and we'll pan around this way and start walking so we can test the stabilization as well as show you a darker area. Those were some lights obviously out that way. Not super bright lights, but there were some lights, and obviously this way there pretty much are none on this walkway. There's some light coming off my left, but as you round the corner, it's pretty much going to be pretty dark. And of course, these cameras are trying to brighten up the scene as much as possible, crank up the ISO, trying to get things brighter than they really are. This is looking much brighter through the viewfinder than it is with my own eye right now. There are some lights along the walkway that are not on, as well as a really bright light right there that is also off. And as I pan this way, it's a bit brighter because you got the lights off the building, but down this way, the lights in that main area are off, so it's darker. And of course, everything is being brightened up by these cameras. And I'll pan up into the building and up into the night sky so you can see what that looks like. And there is some light pollution, but of course, because the cameras are cranking up everything, making it brighter, you got some noise there because of that. There are some stars, I'm not sure if you can see that, but we'll pan back this way. And actually there's the moon right there. But there is your 4K 30 frames per second video test on the iPhone 13 Pro Max and the 17 Pro Max. Let me know what you think about that. Alright, so we're back with the main cameras in some low light. This is at 4K 60 frames per second. And like I was saying earlier, the 13 Pro Max cannot record or switch between lenses at 60 frames per second, but I did want to give you some footage at this frame rate in low light. So again, these are the main cameras. I'm just going to pan around and give you a side-by-side view of the main cameras at 4K 60. And so again, at this, you cannot switch between lenses. So the max I can do is go into that 3x digital zoom on the main lens on the 13 Pro Max. Of course, on the 16 Pro Max, I can still go to a 4x telephoto, 8x, and all the way into the 24x, just like I could at 30 frames. So we'll back these out, 17 Pro Max and on the 13. And I'll just do the same thing. I'll pan around this way. And I'll just walk so you can see the stabilization at 4K 60. See if you notice any other more noticeable micro jitters than you did at 30 frames per second. Also, does the picture look any darker? Generally at 60 frames, it will look darker, but in the viewfinder, it's kind of looking about the same that it did at 30 frames to me. And again, we're walking back out this way where there's pretty much no walkway lights at all. And the picture is still being brightened up by these cameras. So everything looks brighter than what I'm seeing with my own eyes here. And I'll just do the same thing up onto the building, up into the sky. Still a good amount of noise pollution there, or from the cameras brightening things up, and of course with the moon. So let me know what you think about this 4K 60 frames per second footage compared to the 4K 30 frames per second footage that you just saw. Karen, so should you finally upgrade your 13 Pro Max to the 17 Pro Max solely based on camera performance? Well, let me get through this low light camera test of this front facing camera and I'll wrap this video up with my own personal thoughts. And so obviously I'm out here at night, there's some lights around me so you can see what it looks like in some pretty good lighting conditions. And so you can see the really bright lights behind me and how the camera's performing right now. And I'm just gonna start walking so we can show you the stabilization side by side, as well as move over to an area where there's a little bit less light. So you can see what that quality looks like here with a bit less light, no bright lights all the way around me. Like right here, a lot darker. But let me come all the way around here and pan around all the way around so you can see what the picture quality looks like with a bunch of street lights, really bright lights behind me, kind of shining more into the cameras there. So if you're out at night and you got some bright lights around you, this is some of the quality you might come to expect here. And so here we are in this darker area, just to give you a view here side by side with a lot less light. And it is warmer light, so it's gonna be a little bit dingy here. And the quality, kind of looking about the same. Not sure how it's coming out really in post. But let me know what you thought about the comparison and which one you would pick. And if you do have a 13 Pro Max, do you think it's really worth upgrading solely for the cameras? Now, my personal opinion is it very well could be, because there's a lot of improvements here in this 4-year gap. All the camera sensors are brand new and improved. So on the rear, you have triple 48 megapixel fusion cameras on the 17 Pro Max, which is up from the 12 megapixels on the 13 Pro Max. The front-facing selfie camera is also upgraded from 12 to 18 megapixels, and it has that open gate concept on the 17 Pro Max where it can auto switch between portrait and landscape. And it's also a slightly wider field of view on the front-facing selfie camera, so you can fit more in the frame, better for group shots, but not by a ton. It's 20 millimeters versus the 23 millimeters on the 13 Pro Max. And you also get 4K 120, so I think that's important to pro users who want the highest quality slow motion footage on the 17 Pro Max. You also have spatial audio, which is maybe a bit of a gimmick, not really a deal breaker for pro users. I think if you really want good audio, you're probably just gonna have microphones or a separate audio source there. And as far as the photographic styles go, you do have customizable photographic styles on the 17 Pro Max, both before and after the shot, which I think is probably more important to maybe even non-pro users, because I think if you're a pro user, you're probably just gonna use Pro Raw, which you have access to on both these phones, to be able to edit and have full control over customizing your photo, and even log video, which you do have access to on both these phones, except the 13 Pro Max. To shoot and log, you're gonna need a third-party camera app like Blackmagic or Filmic Pro, whereas log video access is built into the default camera app on the 17 Pro Max. And so like I was saying, I think customizable photographic styles is a good thing probably for more non-pro users because of that. I know I like it, being able to customize the photographic style both pre and post shot. I think casual users will appreciate that. And beyond those camera differences, I think in general, or one more thing about the camera, since you are going from 12 to 48 megapixels on the rear sensor, I think the quality of the shots are gonna look about the same if you're not customizing it. If you're just gonna take them for what they are, then I think Apple's image processing is pretty consistent. It looks pretty much the same across these two phones if you're just going with the default camera app. But because you do have more megapixels on the 17 Pro Max to play with, when you start punching in on the zoom on any of the sensors, you're gonna get more wiggle room. So it's not, the quality won't degrade as much as it will on the, like it will on the 13 Pro Max when you do that. Also on the 17 Pro Max, because that you do have a longer reach or range and focal length, so you can zoom in farther for both photos and videos. So that could be something that you may need. But outside the cameras, other reasons to upgrade between the 13 and the 17, of course, you have the latest processor. And so if you're gonna push it to the limit, it also has better thermal management in the 17 Pro Max. It won't heat up as much. I did experience that on my 16 Pro, not so much on the Pro Max, but better thermal management gives you better efficiency, better performance. You also have better battery performance, although the 13 Pro Max is still pretty good. You also get a brighter and anti-reflective display on the 17 Pro Max. And maybe just like the newer design. You want to upgrade, you want the newer looking design, you're tired of 4 years of maybe the same design, or maybe you just got it for, you can get it for a very good deal. But those are some things to consider between cameras and all the other differences between these generations of phones. So lots of changes in these 4 years. Is it a must upgrade? I still don't think so, unless you really need any of the things that I just talked about. I think the 13 Pro Max is still very capable. It also has a SIM card slot here in the United States. So if you like using a SIM card to be able to swap between your phones, if at all, then, or you just don't want to move to eSIM, then the 13 Pro Max might still be viable. So I think you're just gonna have to decide for yourself. I think there's a lot of reasons to upgrade. But that being said, if you don't fall into those buckets of needing any of the things that I just talked about, then the 13 Pro Max is definitely still a very good and capable phone. So let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you've upgraded or are thinking about upgrading from the 13 Pro Max to the 17 Pro Max or any other generation of older iPhone. I'd like to hear your thoughts. And as always, thanks for watching.